Hi, folks. Welcome to the Alix Mayer Show. I am so excited for our guest today. Today's guest is Basketball Hall of Famer John Stockton, whom I was introduced to by Bobby Kennedy way back when we were first locked down because of COVID. He's had a 19-year career with the Utah Jazz, only missing 22 days in that whole time because he's so dedicated to his physical and mental health. He's really an amazing person. If you don't know about John or the issues he's involved with, you're going to be blown away. He first got into the issues of vaccine safety because of things that happened to his kids when they were younger after they got vaccines. So you're going to want to hear about that. And then when we got locked down, he became very active in COVID politics. And so we're going to hear a lot about that. And at the end, I'm going to talk to him about an update on a case that he has around doctor-free speech that is probably going to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. So that is super exciting. And I know you're going to love this episode. So welcome to the Alix Mayer Show. The Alix Mayer Show is sponsored by Mish International, gold and silver specialists since 1963. When you need protection from monetary inflation and leveraged assets exposure, you contact the dedicated people at Mish International. Mish International, a family business, offers true expertise, integrity, reliability, and fair pricing of gold and silver. Visit their website at mishinternational.com. That's MISH international.com. John Stockton, what a pleasure to have you on the Alix Mayer Show. I've really been looking forward to this episode. You are one of my favorite people, and I've appeared on your podcast, The Ultimate Assist, a few times, and I've always had the best time with you and Ken Rutgers. And so now it's my very highest pleasure to bring you onto the Alix Mayer Show.
Well, I'm delighted as well. You, as I've told you before off the air, that you've provided so much information and know-how on this topic. You've just given me confidence over the years. So I'm delighted to be here. Thanks.
Well, you're amazing, and I know everybody else thinks that as well. And what's funny is I didn't know how amazing you were. When we first started talking when we were locked down, I think it was Bobby Kennedy who told me to call you, or maybe you got my number from him. But we were talking on the phone about getting a bunch of athletes together to come out against the COVID narrative, and it just turned into kind of an impossible task. But I didn't know what a superstar you actually were in basketball. I was like, oh yeah, I'm talking to this guy who used to play for the Utah Jazz, and I think he was a good basketball player, but you're a Hall of Famer. You're still like the all-time leader in assists, and you've received many, many awards. Can you tell us a little bit about your career with the Utah Jazz?
Well, it's a little bit of an unlikely career, really. I'm not very big, for example. Guys like me don't often have long and successful careers, but I had a coach that first took a chance on me. Coach Frank Layden took a chance on a guy that doesn't fit the pattern of great players. I had great guys ahead of me. Ricky Green for with the Jazz was an all-star. There's guys like Isaiah Thomas in the league that shown that little guys can play. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but coach had to draft me and take a chance, and then he took a chance on playing me and living through the young player thing, the mistakes and whatnot. And I just had great teammates. It was a situation where I didn't want to go anywhere else. The team didn't want me to go anywhere else. And so we were able to develop as a unit throughout my 19-year career. And I think that exaggerated whatever abilities I brought to the table.
That makes sense. And you're saying you're not tall for a basketball player, but you are tall. You're considered tall, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I still look at myself. I think of it. I see myself in on the basketball court, and everybody's tall on the basketball court. So I always see myself as small, but to the average citizen, I'm slightly above average, I guess, height-wise.
Okay, so I think you're what, 6'2"?
6'1".
6'1". Okay.
I would have liked to have been 6'2", but wasn't in the cards.
You made it work, obviously.
Yeah.
And so your basketball career started at Gonzaga, which has become just this basketball force. I went to Duke University, where basketball was like the thing that everybody lived and breathed every day that you were at Duke. But Gonzaga, you created that exact same thing at Gonzaga when you were there. And that's also how you met my boyfriend. Could you talk about that a little bit?
That's right. Well, we didn't create anything there. That kind of came afterwards. I grew up on campus. I mean, my grandfather played football here in the 1920s. My dad never moved out of the neighborhood in his entire life. And so I grew up in Gonzaga's campus. It wasn't that thrilling to me. When I went on recruiting trips, I thought full well I would try to go somewhere else, no matter what. And kind of decided by the end of it that it was my backyard was pretty darn nice. And so I had the opportunity to, play at Gonzaga. I learned from people ahead of me. I wasn't a great player, wasn't the best player on my team at any stage. And then we had some injuries happen when I was a senior that kind of forced my hand, forced me to go outside my comfort zone, forced me to do some things that drew attention. And sure enough, I was drafted. So the big Gonzaga movement happened probably 20 years later. They started having some great teams and great players and making the tournament and being successful in the tournament. But I like to think that your boyfriend and me and other guys as well had something to do with at least not ruining the look of Gonzaga basketball before it had a chance to ignite.
Well, I always tease you about having false modesty. I do understand that you were the one driver of these summer practices and allowing the team the opportunity to practice during the summers when they were otherwise barred from doing that because you couldn't have your coach there. So you took the lead and you made that happen. And it was under your leadership that the team became so good.
Well, it's kind of fun that it gets called leadership. And so I just wanted to play. And so I had a summer job. And so you go and you do the summer job. We didn't have cell phones. So you had to do your work the night before and you called everybody on your list, every player from our school, from local colleges, that maybe some older guys that were really good. And you called them and said, hey, I'm playing tomorrow at 5 at Gonzaga U. I'm playing tomorrow at 5 after work at Gonzaga Prep or St. Al's, whatever, just neighborhood places. And it was the best. I mean, guys would come in dirty, tired, and we'd just get great basketball. Such a great learning environment for young guys trying to get better. You play against older, better guys. And, it was, it's another thing I get credit for, but all I wanted to do was play. And that was fun.
Well, and play you did. And that propelled you into this 19-year career with the Utah Jazz. I want to touch on one other thing about the Utah Jazz, where you exclusively played. You didn't play for any other teams, which is really unusual compared to today's players. But from my understanding, in 19 years, you only missed 22 days. Is that right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I looked at it as such a privilege to get to play. I get to play in the NBA against the best and with the best basketball players in the world every night. Why would you miss a minute? I mean, I wanted to play all 48 minutes of every game if they'd let me. And I remember missing the first two games. I was sick and I was in a hospital in Charlotte actually, and missed those two games and missed two more with a sprained ankle that same year. I remember almost crying sitting there on the bench as the national anthem was being played, going, I'm missing out on this opportunity. So it was extremely important to me to be not just available, but be ready. I mean, really ready to play every night and enjoy that experience and gain from those experiences. And then once later in my career too, I had a knee surgery that cropped up in training camp, and I missed 18 or 19 games. But those were the only 2 seasons. So I'm proud. I'm proud of that as much as anything, of playing 17 complete seasons without missing a game.
That's really incredible. And I understand you attribute it to a certain doctor named Dr. Bueller, who I actually saw because of your recommendation. And he's absolutely incredible. What does he do that's so special?
Well, he's amazing. And I kind of preface it with, I thought he was a quack when I first saw him. He was with the team and he's doing some goofy stuff over there. I go, wow, yeah, okay, you guys believe what you want. So I just kind of endured my pain for a couple of years. And then it's one by one, he fixed a thing I took. I had a tendonitis on the outside of my right leg, and it would never warm up even till after halftime of any game. It really hurt. So I took these anti-inflammatories for a year and a half and walked into his office. By this time, I had trusted him enough to at least adjust my back, which helped a back issue I had had before, but went away. And I fixed it in 5 minutes, never came back. And it just opened my eyes to, I didn't think that was possible. And he's done that over and over throughout my career. He keeps your body balanced so that unexpected injuries don't just pop out of nowhere. And then when you do have a traumatic issue, he gets you through it so quickly. Sprained ankle, I have examples of sprained ankles where that's a 6 to 8 week protocol for most people, where I would actually go back in the game that day and play the next night and play 2 nights later. So just phenomenal. He does a thing called AIMIT. It's basically muscle integration, and he reactivates muscles, like flipping up breaker switches back on muscles when you have a traumatic injury. Your body shuts it down to protect it. He stabilizes it and then turns those muscles on, and pretty soon you're playing without pain again and with complete stability. It just makes sense. So yeah, I attribute a large portion of my career to his input and impact on my body, frankly.
That's incredible. What an incredible resource he was to you during your career. And I actually saw him, and I do understand that he's reintegrating the nervous system with your muscles so that your muscles wake up again and senescent muscles wake up and serve you again. So, wow. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. I think they're really going to be interested in that if anybody's
Hey,
suffering from
there's a lot
pain.
more to it. He's healed more than muscles and sprained ankles. And healed isn't even the right word. It's put your body in a position where it can heal itself. And I'm now a complete believer in it. I've seen it maybe 1,000 times. So I use it with my kids, babies. I have a grandchild that he did remarkable things for. So yeah, without a doubt, he's special.
He really is. And thank you for recommending him to me and my boyfriend as well. We had
You
great
bet.
experiences.
You bet.
So I want to fast forward, and you're married to a longtime girlfriend, and who was a longtime girlfriend, now your wife, and you have four kids, right? Six
Six.
kids. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lost track.
Six kids and 10 grandchildren at this point.
Wow.
So
Wow. Wow. That's the bonus to have the grandchildren.
yeah, that's where all the gray hairs come from. So
Well, I bet you're the most fun grandpa ever. And I'm sure they're all inspired by your career. But you also got into this issue of vaccine safety because of some of your kids, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
well, back to Dr. Buer a little bit. He started suggesting as we had kids that maybe you don't want to do the vaccine schedule. And I go, yeah, you're out of your mind. I just kind of brushed it aside, thinking that wasn't an area he knew much about. And then just things started happening. So I had one child that I can't say for sure he was damaged by vaccines, but the moment he came out of the hospital, he was sick, and he was sick all the time. Throat was constantly swollen, ear infections, constant, wouldn't sleep, none of these things. And so I didn't really think about it except he was just unlucky. And then he had shots, I think I'm going to guess around 4 years old. And he started having these weird outbreaks of stuff weeks and weeks and weeks after the shots. And so by this time, I would go into Dr. Bueller with most anything, and I said, okay, let's figure out what this problem is and fix it. And he goes, well, this is a vaccine. He could show me through his testing regimen vaccine. Or I said, that can't be. We haven't had a vaccine for 4 weeks. He said, really? 4 weeks? You don't think it impacts your life longer than 4 weeks? Make a long story short, he healed it. I mean, instant, overnight healing using remedies for vaccines. And that didn't even completely convince me, but it opened my eyes, and I started reading and I started looking into these things because it's so taboo. It is so un-American almost to suggest that medicine isn't perfect, that I went in and researched it. And then things just happen throughout your life. I mentioned I spent 2 nights in the hospital in where was I? It was North Carolina, Charlotte. Charlotte is where it was. And why would I have the flu? I took the flu shot that year, and I took the flu shot for 5 years. And I go, well, I shouldn't have the flu. I couldn't say it caused it, but it sure didn't prevent it. Then I saw my father. My father went into sepsis 3 different occasions, all within a day and a half of having his flu shot as an elderly man. And each time, sepsis is a big deal. You can die quickly from sepsis. So he goes into the hospital. They pump him full of more antibiotics. They do, all the medicines for this. They're trying to help him too. They're good people. But it's a month in a hospital for an 85-year-old man, and he was lifting weights with me 3 times a week. Now he's not. And so that became his new normal, his new health level, 3 different times in 3 years. So again, slow learners, we figured out, well, that's the end of that. We're not doing any more flu shots. Come to find out, flu shots have, unless you know what you're doing, they have mercury, aluminum, formaldehyde, neomycin, all kinds of other products, chemicals in it that weaken their immune system, doesn't help them, doesn't prevent any flu. It's all fake. So again, that just solidifies the search and learning. And I've just done nothing but learn since. And yeah, I would recommend any vaccine to anybody. Call me anti-vax if you want. It's been earned.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're one of the ex-vaccinators because that's how anti-vaxxers are created. You used to believe in vaccines until something bad happened, and then you can finally see the patterns, and then you finally see what's really going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, you wouldn't even think to ask the questions. And one of the ones that people throw at me all the time is polio. They said, well, you wouldn't want your kid or grandchildren to get polio. I said, well, now I know this, that The polio vaccine, the whole curve of it, you've seen, they talk about curves with, we're going to end the curve with COVID. The whole polio curve had ended, actually come down to nothing, and then the vaccine was introduced. It was, and by the way, that curve matches exactly with the use of DDT, which was a pesticide when I was a kid that they sprayed behind trucks, and kids would actually run behind the trucks in the summertime to get cool.
Right.
So yeah, it's when DDT ended, polio ended, and they introduced the shots afterwards, and have you claimed it as the miracle of humanity since, when it in fact is not.
No,
So, and that's just one of, it's now what, 80 or 90, Alex, shots, and all of them are falsely tested without true
that's right.
placebos. They often use their previous example as the test, as the placebo, rather than an inert thing like salt water or something. It's pretty not
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Maybe evil at some
I
level.
agree. Yeah, the faux SIBOs is what we call them. And yeah, and do you remember the DDT advertising? I wasn't alive in the 50s, and you weren't either, but it was like this: DDT is good for me. And so people thought they could run behind the DDT trucks. And yeah, I've seen that
Yeah.
exact same chart where the DDT spraying tracks exactly with polio. And that's why they thought polio occurred in pools, because it occurred more often in the summer when there was more DDT spraying. It's
Wow.
wild.
Well, I didn't realize that attachment. That's always good to get the added information. You're the best at it.
Well, I think we're equals, and you're probably ahead of me on most of it. And well, and then what people don't know about the polio vaccine is that in 2000 we switched from the oral polio vaccine to the injected polio vaccine, and I think you're aware that the injected one doesn't prevent person-to-person transmission. So it's just designed to to protect someone's own nervous system if they get polio, but they can still spread it through their saliva and feces. So when even doctors say we're going to bring back polio, it's either a lack of knowledge or they're lying to themselves, because the current polio vaccine doesn't stop person to person spread, right?
Right. Well, plus it's the only polio in this country anyway in the last 40 years has been from people that have been vaccinated or recent, or been in contact with people that have recently been vaccinated, and it's shed, which we now know most of these vaccines shed. And so you are at big time risk of actually giving somebody else that disease. It's not a harmless act to take a vaccine yourself. You are in fact putting the people next to you at risk without question. The medical people will tell you that. That's how I learned it. I learned it from
That's
doctors.
right. Yeah, and if you go on a cancer ward, they still have signs that you're if you're recently vaccinated for MMR or flu or chickenpox, you can't go there because you are shedding for 2 to 3 weeks, right?
Yep. Yep.
Well, and then that brings us to COVID and lockdowns. And so you were already aware of vaccine dangers like I was when we got locked down in 2020. And a lot of stuff happened when we were locked down. I want to go into a few high points of what you were doing during COVID when we were locked down. And first of all, I know you were in a documentary. I don't remember the name of it, but it's called an anti-vaccine documentary. So it sounds like a documentary I would really like. But tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's called Vaccines Revealed. And I had spoke with Dr. Buer, a guy by the name of Patrick Gentempo, remarkable guy, and got connected with Robert Kennedy about that time. And each guy to the person said, "Look, you may want to be real careful, dip your toe in the water," because I was eager to speak to. I needed people to hear this stuff that I had learned over the course of 35 years. It was very predictable what was going to happen, what they were going to try to jam a vaccine down your throat. Now they took it to a level I couldn't have imagined, but a lot of it was predictable. So I was writing letters to people in, let's call it, powerful places, at least that I knew, not like I could reach powerful people, but to try to get them to understand what was coming, and that not to be afraid of this, and that there's alternatives, et cetera. And that they said, "Hey, John, you don't want to do this. It's vicious. Once you make this stand." So what I did was I joined in that thing and mostly kept it on a basketball level. They asked me about during the lockdown. What if Steph Curry? I think was one of my examples. If that had happened when he was a senior, we may not ever had a chance to see Steph Curry's brilliance, and he may never had the opportunity to play in the NBA. He's not a big, overly large guy either. So, that was kind of the tone. But just being on that thing, I became an anti-vaxxer and a little bit of a crazy person at that point, just with one little step in. But once you learn what we've learned, Alex, you don't have a choice. You can't sit there and, I mean, you can protect your own family just by saying, no, this is what we're going to do. But you can't just ignore your neighbor. You can't ignore all these people in your village, in your community, and just say, I'm going to stay silent and take care of me. You need to give them an opportunity to learn what you've learned over the course of your lifetime.
I
That's what
agree.
I
I think
felt.
it's a community sourced type of informed consent that we are obligated to give now, right?
I agree.
Okay, so it was the Vaccines Revealed documentary. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's Jeff Hayes. Jeff Hayes has been remarkable. I believe they put that out. Patrick was in it. I'm so impressed by that video. Just even going back and hearing the people speak, it's incredible. But he's also, I think he's licensed to do some of the Maha stuff, Make America Healthy Again movies. He's one, if not the only one, allowed to put forth those movies.
Yeah, he's a great film producer for sure. We know so many of our listeners understand the relationship between health freedom and our personal and economic freedoms. It's the same principle. If you're one of our audience who's concerned about inflation, paper asset crises, and ongoing monetary crises, you may have already started accumulating gold and silver or are considering doing so. There's no gold dealer we know who's better positioned to serve the freedom community than Mish International in Menlo Park, California. I'm one of the many happy customers who's purchased gold or silver in their showroom, or I've had it delivered through their secure courier service. They are true veterans who are honest, fair, and reliable, and so knowledgeable regarding all the choices of gold and silver bars and coins to help you choose the products that fit your goals and your worldview. The principal, Robert Mish, is world renowned for his expertise in rare coins as well. Write down this number, 650-324-9110. That's 650-324-9110. And visit mishinternational.com. That's MISH international.com to learn more about this notable company. So next I want to ask you about Gonzaga. What happened with Gonzaga when we were locked down, John?
Well, it's funny. I had conversations with many of the higher ups in Gonzaga when all this was happening. Again, trying to share the information, et cetera. And so they gave me the impression that we were in agreement. And then I turn around the next day, they'd have a vaccine station on campus, which I said, wow, that's not really agreeing. And we'd have more discussions. They started mandating people to either get the COVID shot. They certainly did for their students, and they did that for years. They started mandating people to get the shots or be tested that day in order to get into the ZAG games, and you had to be masked. And I frankly refused to do all of the above. And I started wearing a mask just to get in, then I'd pull it down. And then I said, wait, what am I doing here? I'm looking across at these students, just facing all these excited young people there for their education, there for this great experience. And they're all masked up. And I'm saying, wait, they're being forced to take these shots too. So there's no way I can sit over here and just pretend I'm part of the team and we're going to mask up, because it's a way of saying I'm on board,
Exactly.
right? I agree with this stuff. I'm wearing the mask. Look, I got my vaccine card, whatever. I agree. Can't do it. I'm looking across at them saying, if I'm the most visible guy in this place, I can't do that to them. Sure enough, because I'm the most visible guy, I was singled out. There were other people that wouldn't wear their mask, but they said, if you're not going to wear your mask, and this was all friendly. These are people I know. These are my friends. So if you're not going to wear your mask, then we're going to have to rescind your season tickets, which I've had forever. I actually have a card that was given me when I graduated there. It says free admission to any Gonzaga event for the rest of your life. I haven't busted that out on them, but I still have it.
You should.
So anyway, they took that away, and it opened the door to saying, okay, it's on, and started accepting interviews, but suspicious interviews. I wanted to record the entire interviews with anybody, and there was a local guy that did a good job twice. And we just started talking about why it's not okay. And that really kind of catapulted me into being a little bit more active than I probably wanted to be
Really?
initially.
So wait, what happened at that point?
Well, I started doing other people's podcasts. Again, you attract, when you start making a stand like this, you attract both sides. There's people that want to slam you, and you're kind of cautious of that because they're hit pieces. They want to get you on there and just start hollering at you and not let you speak, which I experienced. and you got to try to find the ones that are friendly ears, at least that you can speak and finish the comments, finish your sentences. It gives you a chance to finish your sentences. Now, maybe not everybody sees it, but really opened the door to that. So, well, I'm still a Gonzaga guy. I love Gonzaga. Like I said, I grew up on campus. It's so much a part of it's in my veins. And, but I just can't accept that after that, even when they several years later they quit demanding or mandating the shots, they still said we highly recommend these terrible, dangerous, deadly shots. And they also recommended this is right from the president's office. We're recommending Paxlovid, which most people don't know this, but it's the highest contraindicated drug in history, at least at that point. And the president of a school for admission for to educate their student body is prescribing that. Not a doctor has no right to prescribe this stuff. So it really makes that line defined pretty well that I can't support this in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not. And then again, you look deeper and deeper and deeper in that at that point. But that was the genesis
Wow.
of it for me.
Well,
Continued Genesis,
yeah,
Genesis and
at the same
Exodus.
time, how ironic. A couple follow-up questions on that, but first I want to say that all those colleges are motivated by CARES Act funds called HERF funds, Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds. And so they had to institute all those policies to get that inflow of money, which we like to call COVID cash. Nobody could turn down the COVID cash. They would turn into total monsters and harm people and use children as guinea pigs, lock them down, which I think was false imprisonment when they put them in the dorms, right? All to get the COVID cash. And it's disgusting. It's unforgivable. And I hope it never happens again. But let me go back to this situation with Gonzaga and the community that you're in. How are you treated at Gonzaga, or have you ever set foot on campus again since then? And how are you treated in the community and, for example, at your basketball gym?
Well, on campus, they don't have a fence around it, and there's nobody that has been walking on those grounds longer than me. I don't think. I mean, at 64 years old, I'm walking on that since I was a baby. So I'm not avoiding campus. Now I'm not going to games. How am I treated in the community? Very well. I now the I've had so many people come up, tap me on the shoulder. Hey, thank you so much for speaking out. I didn't feel I could because of my job. And I try to encourage those people. It's little steps. Put your toe in the water. Say something. Don't just go with the flow. But I'm also not sitting there every time somebody taps me on the shoulder. I'm giving them an education, right? So, but I got a great response. Thank you. Mostly thank yous. Sometimes questions. Hey, help me out with this. A ton of questions. How do we navigate schools that are demanding it and still get in? How do we take legal action if necessary? So, I've become a little bit of a source for people, which I'm glad to be. And again, if I'm the leader in this situation, then I guess I didn't ask to be famous, and yet here I am a little bit. Maybe that's why. And maybe I've looked at it as I think this might even be my purpose in life is to be a more visible person that's willing to speak for what he clearly knows is wrong. And otherwise, I'll keep quiet. I've never been a gambler, and I don't need to spout off. So I try
Well,
to
I
be
think
pretty
this is your
prepared.
purpose in life. I mean, obviously, basketball, you showed the world what a premier basketball player could do, what the human body is capable of by your success in basketball. But that also provided you a big platform, a broader platform than people normally have within this vaccine safety, vaccine injury community. And can't tell you how much I appreciate that you're speaking up about it. It's really important.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been hard. I mean, we talked early in the show about getting athletes to do it. I mean, these current athletes, it's very difficult first to reach them, and I get that. I've went through that whole process, but to get one of them to step out and risk in the prime of your life, in the prime earning time of your life as an athlete, and risk that is asking a lot. And there's been a few that have done it. Kyrie Irving certainly has done it. Tennis player Djokovic. I mean, these guys have done stuff similar to Muhammad Ali type. I mean, it's epic efforts on their part to speak the truth. So it's neat when it happens, but it's tough to
Yeah,
get guys to
yeah,
do
I
it.
understand. And that brings us back to one of the questions we started with, which was how we met when we were trying to get a bunch of athletes to come out together against the COVID narrative. And it was pretty much of a no-go. It was all individuals.
It, Again, they have advisors too. and they check with their lawyers, and if they even answer. I mean, it's hard enough to get an answer. And then even guys my age, I mean, these are friends that I communicate with, a lot of ex-teammates, et cetera, and made some inroads, but not to the point where they were really willing to step out. And I don't blame them. Again, I had 35 years leading up to this point of studying it and getting to understand it a little bit. I wouldn't want to spout off on something that I didn't have that kind of foundational knowledge of either. So, and I don't know if you can gain that foundational knowledge in a
No, that
week
is
or a
so
day.
true. Like learning about vaccine dangers is a day by day, hour by hour process of researching it yourself and checking your assumptions. And yeah, every day you learn a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, I'm at 30 years now of researching this stuff. And now I'm an expert. But yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's scary. You can take a stand on it, but you really can't defend yourself until probably 5 or 10 years later. So that's a great point. That's a
Yeah,
great point.
yeah,
So there's a lawsuit that you were the plaintiff, right?
correct,
Okay, so you were the plaintiff
correct,
along with doctors in Washington because the medical board there, which is called the Washington Medical Commission,
correct,
was trying
correct.
to clamp down on their speech around COVID, and there was no due process in this whole witch hunt either. So tell us how that lawsuit came about and where it stands now.
Well, one of the doctors, Dr. Eggleston, he's an 82-year-old ophthalmologist who was retired, so he wasn't even practicing, but he wrote an editorial for the Lewiston Tribune, which is just across the border in Lewiston, Idaho. And my son was playing basketball at Lewis and Clark State at the time, and so we met at a basketball game and we just started talking. And which I don't talk much at my kids' basketball games, by the way. So it was interesting. It was like it was meant to be. But I started reading these incredible articles he wrote, and they just flowed. He had the facts. He had spiritual aspects. He just had all these things that I thought made it impossible to argue. And just nothing. By the way, nothing he ever wrote hasn't turned out to be factual. So he gets attacked by the Washington State Medical Commission because that's where he's licensed because he spoke out against the narrative. How dare he say that vaccines aren't safe, even though he had all the facts to back it and he had cited resources, et cetera. And it comes into the area of they call it soapbox speech, which has been protected by the Constitution since day one. So even doctors are allowed soapbox speech. The Washington Medical Commission hasn't budged, and Washington State hasn't budged. The legal, I mean, we have 45 years of Democratic government here in Washington, and so nearly every judge has been appointed by those governors because they run unopposed so often, and they always retire midterm so that they can become appointed because it's taboo to run against people that are already on the bench. So you lose all those cases, and so there's really nothing to fight. Well, thankfully, Children's Health Defense and Robert Kennedy, that was his thing at the time, stepped up and said, no, this is freedom of speech is something worth fighting for. And I fully agree. That's why I'm in it. And my portion of it is this, Alex, is I have a podcast. I have interest. I've studied this for 35 years. People don't like to hear that word studied, but you read it, you read a lot and you study it. And I have a right to hear that soapbox speech. As a citizen in good standing in Washington State, I have a right to hear it, even if it's nuts, even if it's wrong. I have a right to hear it if a doctor truly believes it and steps up to do it. And so that's where my place is in it. And it's obviously loses in the state of Washington, obviously loses in the Ninth Circuit Court in California. And now it's being considered as an uptake along with two or three other cases that are all freedom of speech issues with the Supreme Court. So it's a big deal, and it should be a big deal. If we can't fight for freedom of speech in this country, we're not fighting for America anymore. I mean, people want to rip the founding fathers for whatever reason. They didn't do this or they didn't do that. Are you kidding me? They stood up for something that is tantamount to this country being what it is. So if you love this country, you have to speak up for
Absolutely.
free
Yeah, that's what
speech. Have to.
differentiates us is we have the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights starts with the First Amendment, which is protecting free speech. Absolutely. And so at first,
Okay.
SCOTUS, you applied to SCOTUS and they rejected it, but then we've got some good news now, right?
What isn't so much news? What happened was the attorney Rick Jaffe, who's been successful on many cases. He's been one of the truly successful guys through all this nuttiness in the courts to win cases. Um, he tried to jump the gun. So we had lost in Washington State, and it was currently going up for the appeals in the Ninth Circuit Court in California. And he said, "Wait, there's two or three other cases right now being handed to the Supremes for decision. We might be able to entirely jump the appeals court and get into accept it because it's all the same conversation." Got one judge, the first judge took it. I can't remember her name, but she said it. She turned it down immediately without comment. Then he said, "Well, gosh, this never happens. Never do those Supreme Court justices disagree with each other kind of publicly." But he sent it, I believe it was Clarence Thomas. And Thomas says, "Well, this is clearly a soapbox issue that needs to be stood up for." And so he poses it in a way that all the other judges can vote. Is this something that we should take on? And you need at least three judges to do it. Now, we never heard the outcome of, was it two? Was it two and a half? Was it a couple maybes or whatever? But that was turned down. But that was the hope for a shortcut. It wasn't being turned down by the Supreme Court. Now it's in that stage. Supreme Court's taken a hard look at it. They haven't turned it down yet. Looks like they're going to take it up, and that would be exciting because it's, as I mentioned, it's
Right. And how can they decide against free speech? And as you said, doctors have the right to free speech also, and patients have the right to hear as well. So I think it's a really, really strong case.
So does he. So do I. I mean, it's if you can't speak your mind, and again, I learned in business law in college that the truth is an absolute defense. And it doesn't seem to be so. It doesn't seem to be so in this case because everything he said was true and it's been proven to be true, both data wise. I mean, I guess it would be called accepted at this point. But the truth doesn't matter. How dare they question the medical doctrine? And because of that, you're losing your license. Again, Dr. Eggleston wasn't practicing. So there's nothing. It was no complaints. It was nothing about how he was a doctor. It was that he
How
dared
dare he?
speak.
Exactly.
How
I need
dare
my
he?
Greta Thunberg braid over on my side of my head. How dare he? So, well, and one little ray of hope on that case is that there was a similar case we did in California when Free Now Foundation was called the Children's Health Defense California chapter. And in conjunction with CHD National, we filed a case against Newsom's Dr. Gag Order bill, where California had tried to limit speech around COVID shots. And Newsom, his advisors said, "Hey, listen, this case is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and they're going to find in favor of doctor free speech." And so what Newsom did, instead of allowing the case to proceed, he had his legislators introduce a new bill to undo AB 2098. And so that's how that case was won.
He's a slippery rascal. I mean, who could argue with Make America Healthy Again, the things that Robert Kennedy's doing right now? And they want to start a new CHD. They don't want research. Now, Robert Kennedy's had that research on these vaccines for, what, 30 years? But he's trying to do it the right way. He's trying to prove it with methods that are accepted by all sides, right? These are the people that if you hear it from them, you can count it to be true. And he's bringing in all sides to do it. And then California, I think Oregon, Washington, they're saying, no, 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 no. We're going to start our own CHD so we can continue to poison our children. It makes no sense. And, at some point in time, you have to say, look, that's the boy that cried wolf. And he just has to be, I don't know what they do in California, but whether it's elections or whatever, but
They absolutely do. They have to go. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon while things just get worse. And yeah, you're mentioning, we're going to close out with some questions here about what you see going on now and what you think the future holds and what you think we should all do to ensure we have medical freedom and ultimately our freedom. But the West Coast Health Alliance is super concerning. That's like an anti-Trump, anti-MAHA effort. And as you said, why would you go against trying to make people healthy again? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Like, what do you think of the West Coast Health Alliance?
I think it's treasonous. I mean, listen, you don't have to like Donald Trump any more than you had to pick any president along the way, but they are elected leader and by large amounts. So for you to just say, we're not doing what you tell us to, no matter what, to me, it's treasonous. Sedition, whatever. You use any big word with ending an ION, and I don't know how that can stand, and I don't know the process to how it gets changed.
I agree.
But
And we're
it's
looking
very
into that.
concerning.
The term medical secession does not exist yet, but I think it's a medical secession, and you can't secede from the United States without a vote from all the other states. So I think there will be some law around this, and my attorneys are looking into it at Free Now Foundation, and it's getting worse. One thing that just happened in California, which I'm sure the rest of the West Coast Health Alliance is going to take on, is this WHO membership called GORN, Global Outbreak and Alert Response Network, GORN. And so that California is in that now. And so if there's a public health emergency of international concern, the 6 words you never want to hear, then the GORN experts could come to California and help enforce that. They could lock us down. They could contact trace us. They could geofence us. And that's not something I want. And that's at taxpayer expense if they come here. And I bet you that Washington will follow, and Oregon and Hawaii.
They've signed a contract with a foreign
Yes.
entity to do something against our government. I mean, is that not just being a traitor? Is that not sedition? I don't see how you get around that legally. Um, I don't know. Not good. It's not good. By the way, you mentioned Free Now, unbelievable organization, as is CHD, and I just think if we all, I think people tend to be charitable. They keep trying to find good ways to be charitable, and we support all these programs. But there's a couple that kind of supersede everybody, and that's Free Now and Children's Health Defense. So I'm proud of what you do. You share it so willingly and your time, and so
John,
that's a big
thank you
deal.
so much for
Thank you for
saying that.
doing
It's
that.
it's just I love doing this work, and I don't think there's any more important work we could be doing, because medical freedom will lead to the loss of our freedom if we don't protect that. So, what do you think people can do right now? Like, what do you see on the horizon, and what steps can people take to make sure we do have the most medical freedom going forward?
Well, kind of when I got asked that at the start of COVID, what do we need to do? I said we need to go to the airport when they close it down and everybody lock arms and say nobody's flying then. Fine, yeah, I can't find nobody's flying. Uh, I have a little experience with that because over the years of getting kids into schools without accepting the children's vaccine schedule is a challenging, and you kind of got to buck the system, and you got to be, if you're looking at it from the other people's chair, that you got to be a little bit of a jerk sometimes. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. And hold your ground. There's so much backing for that type of stance that you can do so confidently. So I'd say do a little research on your own. Look at some of these books. Look at that, The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert Kennedy Jr. and see some of the evils that have led to this vaccine issue. There's one by Brian Hooker, Vax versus Unvaxxed, where it just discusses, just plain with all other things hit out of the way. Are you healthier as a vaccinated child, or or as an unvaccinated child? And you are way more healthy as an unvaccinated child. So there's information out there now that you can get. Be informed with everything, because then it makes these conversations pretty easy. And somebody says you're trying to do it, you just go, no, look, no, look, no, look. It's certainly not over. I tried to send out a thing from informme.com. It's a vaccine report that explains largely the vaccine schedule and why each one of them is dangerous and why they aren't working. And I just tried to send it out in an email, and Gmail would not accept it. Any of the people that I sent it to with Gmail would not accept it because of content, it said. So I'm looking at that. We're in 2026, and that's not getting
That is, and I've
through.
never heard of
That's
Gmail.
censorship. And why is that on the algorithm? So I don't think we can take our feet off the gas. I think we got to keep applying, trying to get into school boards, there's no office too little. And then just speak up every time, resist. I think her last name Sharav. We had her on as a show. She was a
Oh yeah, Vera
Holocaust
Sharav.
survivor. And Vera said, just resist. She said, resist at every turn. This can happen to us here. I never thought it would have happened to me when I was a little girl, but it can happen here.
Yeah,
And I think those are
there's
good
no
words to go
congeniality
by.
award when you're fighting for your medical freedom or your freedom. Just throw that out the window. And yeah, Vera is an incredible voice for that. She's remarkable. So tell us where we can find the Ultimate Assist podcast. I love your podcast. You just did a great episode with Lucia Sinatra of No College Mandates, who I have great respect for. Tell us a little bit more about that show, and we'll close out.
Well, the ultimate assist came later. I didn't choose that, by the way. My buddy Ken Rutgers and our Elliot Foster and Janet Bueller, who were producing it, said, "Look, we got to do this and connect it with you." I said, "Well," Anyway, it wasn't my call. We had Voices for Medical Freedom that we started, I think, in 2021, trying to get the word out. You mentioned it earlier. And it's become that we have phenomenal guests over and over again. These people are willing to talk and share their wisdom. And we're just a couple old athletes asking questions that some old athletes would ask. And over again, we're not surprised anymore that the wisdom and the generosity of these people sharing their time. So I think we have a great show, not because of the input we have, but because of our guests, and hopefully people tune in.
You do. You have a fantastic show. So it's called The Ultimate Assist. And where can we find it? On Spotify?
Spotify, Rumble. We've been kicked off of YouTube a number of times, but I think we keep trying. I mean, you just can't say anything on YouTube that they don't agree with. But I think that's about it. There's something else too, Alex. That's not my category.
Well, the Ultimate Assist is great on Rumble, where you can have the video, or if you just want to listen to it while you're driving or doing something else. And Spotify is a great place to listen to it, but it's always a fantastic show. You and Ken do a fantastic job with it. And I love your guests. I love your style. I love the questions you ask and the follow-ups. So I encourage everybody to head over to the Ultimate Assist and check out John and Ken Rutgers. And okay, John Stockton, thank you so much for being on the Alix Mayer Show. And I hope we can have you back again.
You have me back. All you got to do is call. Come anytime you want to. You're the best. And I'm grateful for all you're doing. I don't know how you have the energy. You're incredible.
Well, likewise. Okay. Thanks again. We are so happy to have as our prime sponsor, Mish International, Northern California's acclaimed specialists in rare coins and gold and silver investments. Our friend and supporter, Robert Mish, is the same principal that started the company back in 1963, and he's still there every day with 63 years of experience. He has integrity, reliability, and fair pricing, whether you're buying or selling. When you have business to do with precious metals, you'll always be treated well at Mish International. Call 650-324-9110 and tell Robert that Alex sent you.